On day 61 of this war, somewhere over Central Asia, an Iranian foreign minister is sitting in a pressurized cabin carrying something more dangerous than any missile Iran has left. He is carrying an offer that America already called much better, an offer America has not yet officially responded to, and he is bringing it to Moscow before Washington has written a single word back. That is not a coincidence. That is not a scheduling quirk. That is the most important thing happening on this planet right now, and almost nobody in the mainstream press is treating it that way. Let me tell you what actually happened in the last 48 hours, because the coverage split it into two separate stories, when it is one story with one meaning. Story 1, Trump canceled Witkoff and Kushner's Pakistan trip, said Iran's offer wasn't good enough, and within 10 minutes received a revised version he described as much better. He then told reporters America has all the cards, said Iran can call any time, and went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Story 2, Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi completed meetings with Pakistan's foreign minister, Pakistan's prime minister, and Pakistan's army chief, presented what Iranian state media called a workable framework, flew to Oman, met with Sultan Haitham, and then boarded a flight to Moscow. The press treated these as parallel tracks. They are not parallel. They are the same track, and the direction of that track leads somewhere America's current posture is completely unprepared for. Here's the thing about that 10-minute response time that nobody is saying out loud. 10 minutes is not enough time to call the IRGC. It is not enough time to convene Iran's Supreme National Security Council. It is not enough time to redraft language, clear it through the chain of command that Iran operates under, and transmit it through a Pakistani diplomatic back channel. 10 minutes is enough time to press send on something that was already written. Iran had the revised offer sitting in a draft folder before Trump made his cancellation call. They were waiting for exactly that move. When Trump canceled, Iran didn't blink and scramble. Iran executed. The offer that Trump called much better was calibrated in advance to land in a specific territory, close enough to the American position that Trump would describe it positively in public, far enough from American demands that no deal could close without another round. Iran placed its improved offer in precisely that gap on purpose, because that gap is the exact space Iran needed to buy time for Araghchi to get to Moscow. Think about what Araghchi is actually carrying right now. He is carrying the terms of a revised Iranian position that the American president has publicly validated as much better, that America has not sent a written response to, and that Russia is about to hear in full before America's diplomatic team has assembled in any room to formally receive it. That sequencing, Pakistan hears the offer first as mediator, Oman hears the regional dimensions as a neutral channel, Moscow hears the full revised position as Iran's strategic partner, is not geography, it is architecture. And it was built before Trump picked up the phone. Now, you have to understand what Russia actually is in this negotiation, because calling Russia a mediator would be wrong and calling Russia a bystander would be absurd. Russia is the country that earns an estimated $15 million more per day in oil revenues for every day this war continues. Russia is the country that signed a 20-year strategic partnership with Iran in January, and whose Foreign Minister Lavrov publicly placed an offer on the table in Beijing saying Russia would accept Iran's enriched uranium and reprocess it into civilian reactor fuel, on terms that suit Iran rather than America. Russia is the country that, according to American intelligence reporting, has been providing Iran with satellite data on American naval and troop positions throughout this conflict. Russia is not a neutral party waiting on the sidelines. Russia is the country that has quietly built itself into the one entity that both Iran and America will eventually need when this negotiation reaches the point neither side can publicly move on. And that point is uranium. The uranium question broke the first round of talks in Islamabad. Trump said most issues were close, but the nuclear question was not. And the nuclear question is essentially one demand on the American side. Iran's enriched uranium must physically leave Iran and go under international control. Iran's public position is that its uranium goes nowhere under any circumstances. Those two statements in their public form cannot coexist in any deal, which is exactly why Russia's offer matters more than any other single diplomatic variable in this conflict. If Iran's uranium leaves Iran and goes to Russia for reprocessing, America can claim the material is gone. Iran avoids handing its most strategically sensitive asset to the country that just bombed it for 60 days. Russia becomes the permanent custodian of Iran's nuclear legacy, with leverage over its future that no sanctions regime could replicate. Trump reportedly rejected this arrangement. He did not want Moscow accumulating that kind of structural influence over Iran's program. But Trump's rejection did not take Russia's offer off the table. Lavrov said it publicly. The Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed it. It was not withdrawn. It sits there right now as the standing alternative to whatever Washington is proposing on the uranium issue, and Araghchi is flying toward the man who made that offer, carrying Iran's updated position. Here's what that means in concrete terms. When Araghchi sits across from Russian officials in Moscow and tells them what Iran's improved terms actually contain on uranium suspension timelines, on enrichment purity levels, on the supervision framework Iran would accept, Russia gains something that changes the entire geometry of the next round of talks. Russia learns where Iran's real floor is before America does. That information is not abstract. It tells Russia exactly how much Iran needs the Russian uranium custody offer in order to close a deal. It tells Russia precisely what terms Russia can extract from Iran for taking the material. Russia is not offering to take Iran's uranium as a favor. Russia is positioning to acquire a permanently leveraged asset over a major regional power's nuclear program. And it is about to learn the exact price Iran is willing to pay for that arrangement, before America has responded to a single word of the revised offer. I want to engage seriously with the argument that none of this changes anything, because that argument has some genuine weight. The strongest version of it goes like this. Araghchi's Moscow visit is domestic political theater. Iran cannot be seen accepting American terms without first demonstrating it consulted its most important partner. The IRGC hardline faction inside Iran requires visible evidence that leadership checked with Russia before making any concessions. So the Moscow visit is performance, not substance. Russia and Iran have a continuous consultation channel under the 20-year partnership. Russia already knows Iran's positions in more granular detail than any foreign minister's visit could update, and American intelligence, which was able to report that Russia was providing Iran with real-time satellite tracking of American ships, is presumably monitoring the Russia-Iran diplomatic communications channel well enough to know what gets discussed in Moscow. That case is coherent. I am not dismissing it, but here is what it cannot explain. The timing of when the improved offer was transmitted and to whom. The revised Iranian proposal went through Pakistan's mediation channel to America. That is the route Iran chose for the version it wanted America to see. Russia did not receive that offer through Pakistan. Russia receives it in Moscow in a bilateral foreign minister meeting under the consultation provisions of a strategic partnership that includes specific protocols for exactly this kind of exchange. The offer Iran shares with Russia in Moscow is not filtered through a mediator's interest in producing a deal. It is not constrained by what Iran is willing to show a country whose cooperation it needs, but whose leverage it cannot fully trust. What Iran tells Russia in Moscow is what Iran tells its most important strategic partner in a protected bilateral channel. Those are not the same thing, and America has no access to the version Russia receives. The practical consequence of that asymmetry will become visible in the next round of negotiations. When American negotiators eventually respond to Iran's revised offer and try to move on the uranium question, they will be engaging an Iran whose position on uranium has just been privately coordinated with the country that has a public competing offer on that exact issue. America will be negotiating against an Iran that has already been to Moscow. That is not a minor procedural disadvantage. That is the structural foundation of why Iran still controls the sequencing of this negotiation after 61 days of being bombed. There are three specific things worth watching as the next 48 hours develop. The first is the language of any joint statement that comes out of the Moscow meeting. Russia and Iran have issued statements throughout this conflict in consistently generic terms. If the Moscow statement after this specific visit contains any reference to uranium arrangements, third-party custody frameworks, or enrichment suspension that goes beyond the usual diplomatic boilerplate, Russia and Iran have publicly coordinated their uranium position after Araghchi presented the revised terms. Watch specifically for the phrase mutually acceptable arrangements applied to Iran's nuclear material. That is how Russia signals it is moving from a standing offer into active negotiation. The second is whether America says anything officially about the Moscow meeting at all. If Washington stays silent, Russia shapes Iran's position for the next round while America waits for a phone call. If Washington responds, the calculus changes. The third is what Pakistan says when Araghchi returns to Islamabad after Moscow. Pakistan has been consistently optimistic. If Pakistani officials describe the situation as more structurally complex after the Moscow leg than they did before it, Araghchi came back from Russia with something different than what he left Pakistan with. Trump said America has all the cards. He said Iran can call any time. That framing is psychologically designed for a domestic audience that wants to hear strength. But the question this moment actually requires is a different one. America called Iran's revised offer much better. America has not responded to it in writing. Iran's foreign minister just left for Moscow carrying that offer and updated instructions obtained in Tehran specifically for the Moscow leg of this trip. When Russia hears Iran's much better terms in a bilateral meeting tonight and America is still waiting for a phone call, who in this negotiation is actually holding the cards and who is holding the phone?